The lonesome whistle of an approaching train cut right through the quiet morning air of Salada, Colorado, as Catherine Kelly held onto her small bag. With her hands a-trembling and just 20 years old, her round belly showed plainly under her worn traveling dress. It told a story that had already cost her every last thing she had ever called her own, back in the year of 1882. And that old Union Pacific train was about to deliver her to what she prayed was a new start, but feared was just another heartbreak. Catherine took a step back as the giant iron horse thundered into the station, its steam pouring out all around the platform, just like a thick morning fog on the Arkansas River. She nervously twisted the simple gold band on her finger, a sharp, bitter reminder of a broken promise and a life gone clean off the rails. It was her mother's ring. Catherine had never been given one to call her very own. "All aboard for Denver!" the conductor hollered, his voice booming out. With a deep breath, Catherine moved toward the train. Salada was a busy old supply town, serving all the mining camps. The platform was just swarming with folks, mostly fellows in their worn-out work clothes and dusty boots. Some of them toted mining gear, while others carried nothing but the hope of striking silver and getting rich. "Pardon me," she said softly, trying to make her way through the thick crowd, with her pregnant belly leading the way. A hard-looking fellow with a big beard spat tobacco juice right near her skirts. As she passed, he drawled, loud enough for half the county to hear, "Well, Lord have mercy, will you look at that? Somebody's gone and gotten herself in the family way without bothering to wait for the preacher's blessing." Catherine kept her gaze fixed straight ahead on that train, just praying she wouldn't start crying. She'd shed enough tears to last her a whole lifetime. "Have you no shame showing your face in public?" A sharp woman's voice cut in. Catherine glanced over at a stern-looking lady. She was dressed in a fancy traveling suit, her face all pinched up with a high and mighty look. "A decent woman would have the good sense to stay hidden in your condition." The cruel words felt like a slap, but she was getting used to them. She'd heard plenty of talk like that back in her hometown of St. Louis. After her fiancé left her high and dry when he found out about the baby, saying it wasn't his, her own father had thrown her out of the house. It was only her dear mother who slipped her just enough money for a train ticket west, right before she shut the door on her for good. "Well, she's wearing a ring," another man pointed out with a nasty grin. "But I'd bet my last dollar that ring's about as real as her good name." A wave of mean laughter spread through the crowd, and Catherine could feel her cheeks burning red with shame. She had nowhere to go, not a soul waiting for her. All she had was this one desperate hope that some town further on might have work for a woman like her. "That's a mighty quick turnaround from the altar to the cradle, ain't it?" Another voice piped up, and more folks started to laugh. Her eyes started to blur with tears she refused to let fall as she fumbled around for her ticket. The baby gave a little kick, as if it was already fighting back. She had grown to love this little child with all her heart. It was the only family she had left in the whole wide world, even though its coming had cost her everything else. "Y'all have said quite enough," a deep voice suddenly boomed, cutting through all the ugly talk. The crowd shuffled back a bit, and through the opening, Catherine saw a tall man stepping forward, the brim of his hat hiding most of his face in shadow. Well-worn Stetson, but she could tell he was younger than she first thought, probably in his late 20s. His shoulders were broad under a faded blue shirt, and he wore a gun belt low on his hips like it was second nature to him, accustomed to its weight. "This ain't your concern, Sullivan," the tobacco-chewing man grumbled. "Well, I'm making it my concern, Harrove," the man Sullivan answered calmly, his voice holding a quiet power that seemed to settle the ugly mood around them. He turned to Catherine, and she was taken aback by his eyes, the color of a clear summer sky. Without a second thought, he reached out his hand to her. "Samuel Sullivan, ma'am, but most folks just call me Sam." His weathered hand stayed right there, waiting. "Don't you mind these fellas? They forget their manners sometimes." Catherine hesitated, not sure what this stranger really wanted from her. Life had taught her that men hardly ever offered a helping hand without wanting something for it. The crowd had gone quiet, watching the two of them with curious eyes. The train conductor called out again for all passengers heading to Denver. Sam took a step closer, and Catherine saw a real kindness in his eyes. "You look like you could use a friend right about now." His voice dropped low, just for her to hear. You're a beautiful woman to me, ma'am. A woman carrying a child deserves respect, not folks making fun of her. Something in what he said, maybe just the simple human kindness that she hadn't seen in so long, finally broke through the strong walls Catherine had built around her heart. She placed her trembling hand in his, feeling the calluses from a life of hard work on his palm. "Catherine Kelly," she whispered. "Thank you, Mr. Sullivan." "Where are you headed, Miss Kelly?" he asked, his hand still holding hers gently. "Denver," she answered, though the truth was she had no real place to go, just away. "I'm hoping to find some work there." Sam's eyes narrowed just a little as he looked at her face. "Denver can be a tough place for a woman on her own. You have any family waiting for you there?" Catherine just shook her head, feeling that familiar lump forming in her throat. "No family. There's no one waiting." The conductor gave one last call to board the train. Catherine started to pull her hand away, but Sam held on. "Salida could use a woman with your kind of courage," he said all of a sudden. "We have a good town that's growing. The hotel is looking for help, and Mrs. Peterson, the woman who runs it, is a fair person." Catherine blinked, confused. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." A small smile touched Sam's lips. "I know enough. I know what it looks like when a person is running from something. And I know what it looks like when someone is brave enough to just keep on going, no matter what." The train whistle blew a long, loud signal that it was about to leave. Catherine glanced over at the train, then looked back at Sam's face. There was something so reassuring in his steady eyes, something that felt dependable in a world where she had found so very little of that. "I can't offer you a whole lot," Sam continued, "but I have a small place just outside of town. There is a little cabin on the property where you could stay until you get on your feet. No strings attached. You would be safe there, Tiafin." Catherine had learned the hard way to be wary of men and their promises, but something in Sam's eyes felt honest. And the other choice, getting on that train with no real plan and hardly any money, all of a sudden felt absolutely terrifying. "Why hadn't she asked again, just needing to understand. Sam's whole face softened up. "Because 6 years back, my own sister found herself in a similar spot, and not a soul helped her." He did not say another word, but the hurt in his eyes told Catherine everything she needed to know. The train started to lurch forward, its wheels groaning on the rails. Catherine made up her mind right then, squeezing Sam's hand a little tighter. "I'll stay," she said, her voice stronger than it had been in months. Sam gave a single nod, like they were sealing a serious deal. "You won't regret it, Miss Kelly. Salada might just surprise you." As the train pulled on out of the station, Catherine felt a wave of relief she had not expected. For the first time since finding out about the baby, she was not all on her own. Sam picked up her little bag. "My wagon's just over yonder. Are you feeling hungry? The cafe makes a right fine breakfast." Catherine nodded, suddenly realizing she had not had a bite since last evening. "Yes, thank you." As they walked away from the train platform, she could feel prying eyes on them, but all the mean whispers had stopped. Just having Sam beside her felt like a shield against the judging stares of strangers. "Don't you pay no mind to the gossips," Sam said in a low voice. "They'll find something new to cluck about by sundown. Folks around here have short memories for trouble, but long ones for kindness. You will make your own way just fine here." Catherine looked up at the man walking beside her, wondering if she'd made a terrible mistake trusting a stranger, or the wisest choice of her entire young life. One way or another, Salada, Colorado, now held her future and the future of her unborn child. The cafe was a simple place with worn-down wooden floors and red checkered tablecloths. The wonderful smell of fresh biscuits and sizzling bacon filled the air, making Catherine's stomach rumble loud enough to hear. She turned red, but Sam pretended not to notice a thing as he led her to a little table by the window. A kindly-looking woman with graying hair tied back in a neat bun walked right up to their table. "Morning, Sam." Her curious eyes shifted over to Catherine. "Who's your friend?" "Morning, Irene. This here is Miss Catherine Kelly. She's new in Salada and might be looking for some work over at Peterson's hotel." Sam's voice was easy and calm, like bringing a pregnant stranger to breakfast was just another Tuesday. "Miss Kelly, this is Irene Cooper. She makes the best apple pie in 3 whole counties." Irene's eyes lingered for a moment on Catherine's round belly, but her face did not show a thing. "Welcome to Salada, Miss Kelly. What can I get for you two?" "I will have the full breakfast," Sam answered, "and whatever the lady here would like." "The same, please," Catherine said softly, "if it is not too much to ask." Irene smiled a warm smile. "No trouble at all, honey. You look like you could use a good hot meal." She gave Catherine's shoulder a gentle pat before heading back to the kitchen. Once they were alone again, Catherine folded her hands on the tabletop. "Mr. Sullivan, Sam, please," she corrected herself. "I need to be clear on what it is you are offering. In my experience, men do not just offer kindness without expecting something in return." Sam's face clouded over for just a second. "That is not the kind of man I am, Miss Kelly. The cabin I told you about is separate from my house. You would have your own space. I am only offering it because it is sitting there empty and you need a roof over your head." He took a breath. "My sister Emma, she passed away. Baby, too. No one would lift a finger to help her." Catherine's hand flew to her own belly. "I am so very sorry." Sam just nodded, like he understood. "I couldn't help Emma, but I can help you. That is all this is about." Irene came back with 2 cups of hot coffee and set one down in front of each of them. "Food will be out directly." Catherine wrapped her fingers around the warm cup, taking comfort from the heat. "I do not have much money," she said quietly, "but I am willing to work hard. I was trained to be a teacher back in St. Louis, though I figure no one would hire me in my condition. Mrs. Peterson over at the hotel is a practical woman. She cares more about hard work than looks, and once that baby comes, teaching could be a real possibility. Salada is growing fast, and there is already talk of needing another school teacher by this time next year." A little bit of hope sparked in Catherine's heart, a feeling she had not felt in months. "I would like that very much." Their breakfast arrived. Plates were piled high with scrambled eggs, thick bacon, fried potatoes, and fresh biscuits just dripping with butter. Catherine tried to mind her manners, but her hunger was just too strong. She cleaned her whole plate while Sam was kind enough to pretend not to notice. "When is the little one due?" he asked after she had finished. "About 2 months, I reckon." Catherine put her fork down. "The father?" She had to swallow hard. "He denied it was his. Said the child could belong to anyone. It was not true, but it gave him the excuse he wanted to leave." Sam's jaw got tight. "Some men do not deserve to be called men. My own parents believed him instead of me. My father gave me just 1 hour to pack my belongings." The words tumbled out easier than she ever thought they would. Maybe it was the kindness in Sam's eyes, or maybe it was just the relief of speaking the truth after so many months of shame and silence. "That is their loss," Sam said, plain and simple. "A grandchild is a blessing, not something to be ashamed of." Catherine looked at the man sitting across from her, at his sun-baked face, the little scar by his right eyebrow, and the steady look in his eyes. He was handsome in a rugged sort of way, but it was his quiet strength that really got her attention. She had not known many men like him. "What is it you do here in Salada?" she asked him. "I raise horses, mostly. I have a small ranch about 3 miles out of town. I train them for the miners, ranchers, and other folks. I also guide some hunting parties up in the mountains when the season is right." "And you live out there all alone?" A small smile played on his lips. "It is just me and about 20 horses, plus a cranky old dog named Buck who thinks he runs the whole outfit." Catherine found herself smiling right back at him. "I like horses and dogs. I had a little spaniel when I was a girl." Sam paid for their meal, even though Catherine tried to protest. As they walked out of the cafe, he pointed out the buildings in town, the general store, the bank, the small church, and way down at the end of the main street, a 3-story building with a brand new sign that read, "Peterson's Hotel." "Would you like to go speak with Mrs. Peterson right now?" Sam asked. "Or would you rather get some rest first? That journey must have worn you out." Catherine squared her shoulders. "I would like to speak with her now if it is all the same. The sooner I can find some work, the better I will feel." Sam nodded, looking pleased. "I had a feeling you might say that." The hotel lobby was clean and simple, with a front desk made of polished oak, a desk and a few chairs that looked mighty comfortable. A stern-faced woman with silver-streaked black hair looked up when they walked in. Entered. "Samuel Sullivan," she said, her voice dry. "Twice in 1 month. The world must be coming to an end." But Catherine could tell there was some kindness underneath that tough exterior. "Mrs. Peterson, I'd like you to meet Miss Catherine Kelly. She's new to Salada and looking for honest work." The older woman's sharp eyes sized Catherine up from head to toe, pausing for a moment on her pregnant belly before meeting her gaze. "What can you do, Miss Kelly?" Catherine stepped forward. "I can read and write well, ma'am. I'm good with numbers. I was trained as a teacher, although I understand that kind of job might not be suitable for me right now. I'm willing to work hard at whatever tasks you might have." Mrs. Peterson's face gave nothing away. "Can you make beds, serve food, and deal with fussy guests without getting all teary-eyed?" "Yes, ma'am, I don't cry easily." That part was certainly true. Catherine had done all her crying in private these last few months. "When is that child due?" "In about 2 months, ma'am." Mrs. Peterson tapped her fingers on the desktop. "And after that?" Catherine swallowed hard. "I plan to keep my child and keep on working, if that's possible." To her surprise, Mrs. Peterson nodded. "Good. I have no use for women who walk away from their responsibilities." She glanced over at Sam. "I reckon she's staying out at your place for now." "The old foreman's cabin," Sam clarified right away. "It's just sitting there empty." Mrs. Peterson considered this, then turned back to Catherine. "I can offer you a room and your meals, plus $2 a week. You'll work from 7 in the morning until 7 at night with Sundays off. Once the baby comes, we can talk again. If you prove yourself, I might even let you keep the little one in a back room while you work." The offer was far more generous than Catherine had ever dreamed of. "Thank you, ma'am. When would you need me to start?" "Tomorrow morning. That'll give you today to get settled." Mrs. Peterson's stern face softened just a little. "I was in your shoes once, Miss Kelly, 30 years ago. My Harold, he turned out just fine. Owns the bank now. You remember that when you hear folks whispering behind your back." Catherine felt tears welling up, despite her promise that she didn't cry easily. "I will, ma'am. Thank you." As they were leaving the hotel, Catherine turned to Sam. "You already had this arranged, didn't you?" Sam looked a bit sheepish. "I may have mentioned to Mrs. Peterson that a young lady with good character might be looking for work soon. She's been short-handed since Miss Abernathy got married last month. Why would you go to all that trouble for a stranger?" Sam helped her into his wagon before he gave her an answer. "Because everyone deserves a second chance." He climbed up beside her and grabbed the reins. "And sometimes, kindness is its own reward." As they headed out of town towards Sam's ranch, Catherine looked at the mountains rising up so grandly in the distance. For the first time in months, she felt something close to peace. The road ahead was not going to be easy, but at least now there was a road, not just the edge of a cliff. "Thank you," she said softly, "for everything." Sam simply nodded, keeping his eyes on the trail ahead. "Welcome to Salada, Miss Kelly. I have a feeling you're going to fit right in." The road out of Salada wound easy-like through piney foothills, hugging the curve of the Arkansas River for a spell, before it cut off onto a skinnier trail. Catherine took a good long breath, just soaking up that crisp mountain air that smelled of pine and wild sage. After all those months in smoky train cars and crowded stations, that clean scent was something else. It was a heady feeling. "My, it's beautiful out here," she said, breaking the peaceful quiet that had settled between them. Sam just nodded, a little smile playing on his lips. "That's the reason I stayed. Came out here after the war, looking for silver like every other fella. Found this piece of land instead." "You were in the war?" Catherine asked, seeing for the first time the slight stiffness in the way he held his left shoulder. "Union cavalry. I was at Gettysburg and a few other places I do my best to forget." A shadow crossed his face for a second, then it was gone. That was a whole lifetime ago. Catherine studied the side of his face, wondering what awful things he had seen as such a young man. The war had been over 17 years, which meant Sam must have been nothing but a boy when he signed up. "My father fought as well," she offered quietly. "He came back a different man. My mother said he used to laugh a whole lot more before." Sam made a low sound of understanding. "War changes a man, some for the better, some for the worse." He pointed up toward a grove of aspen trees. "We're nearly there. My place is just on the other side of that ridge." As they came over the top of the small hill, Catherine just about lost her breath. Below them, a valley spread out, held by mountains on three sides. A simple but sturdy-looking house made of weathered wood stood near the middle of it all, with a few outbuildings and a corral where horses of all different colors were grazing peaceful as you please. A little creek snaked through the property, its banks all lined with willows and cottonwood trees just starting to show their spring green. "Oh, it's just lovely," Catherine whispered. "Well, it is not much," Sam replied, though you could hear the pride in his voice. "But it is all paid for and the land is good. Those mountains there keep us from the worst of the winter storms." They headed on down into the valley, and Catherine noticed a smaller cabin set off a ways from the main house, tucked near a patch of pine trees. "That there is the foreman's cabin," Sam explained, following her gaze. "Built it back when I figured the ranch would get bigger than I could handle on my own. Never did hire that foreman, though." As they got closer to the main house, a big old dog with grizzled fur came running toward the wagon, barking his head off with excitement. Sam pulled the horses to a stop. "That's Buck," he said. "Do not you mind his racket. He is as gentle as a lamb once he knows you are friendly." The dog trotted around the wagon, sniffing at everything. When Sam hopped down and offered Catherine his hand, Buck came up slow, his tail giving a cautious little wag. "It is all right, boy," Sam told him. "She is a friend." Catherine held out her hand, letting Buck sniff her fingers before she gently scratched behind his ears. "Hello there, Buck." The dog's tail started wagging faster, and he leaned right into her skirts, nearly knocking her off her feet. "Easy there, fella." Sam put a hand on her elbow to steady her. "He forgets how big he is sometimes." Catherine let out a laugh, and the sound of it surprised her. It had been so long since she'd had any reason to laugh. "He is just wonderful." Sam's eyes got warm seeing how pleased she was. "Come on now, I will show you to the cabin. You must be plumb tuckered out." The foreman's cabin was small, but it was built tough, with a main room holding a stone fireplace, a solid table with a couple of chairs, and a narrow bed pushed up against one wall. A smaller room off to the side had a washstand and a copper tub. "It ain't much," Sam said, setting her bag on the table. "But it'll keep the weather out, and it gets plenty warm once the fire's going." "It's perfect," Catherine replied, and she truly meant it. After months of not knowing what was next, the simple cabin felt like a grand palace. "There's a pump out back for water. The outhouse is behind that little stand of pine trees over yonder. I'll bring you some firewood and get this stove going for you." Sam moved around with purpose, checking the small cast iron stove in the corner. "The door's got a lock on it, if that'll make you feel any safer." He said it real casual-like, but Catherine understood he was trying to put her mind at ease. "Thank you." While Sam went to fetch the firewood, Catherine took a better look around the cabin. The bed had a clean mattress, but no sheets or blankets. The cupboards held a few plain dishes and some cooking tools. It was bare, but it would do just fine. Sam came back with a whole armload of split pine. He knelt at the stove, placing the wood just so, and lighting it like he'd done it 1,000 times. "I'll bring you some bedding from the house and some food to hold you over. I just can't accept so much without giving something back in return," Catherine protested. Sam stood up straight, brushing the dust from his hands. "Just consider it a loan, then. Once you are all settled at Mrs. Peterson's, you can pay me back if it makes you feel better about it." Before Catherine could even answer, she felt a sharp little kick from her baby. She gasped, and her hand shot right to her belly. "Are you all right?" Worry creased Sam's forehead. "Yes." She smiled, placing her hand over the spot where she'd felt the little flutter. "The baby's kicking. It does that a lot now." The hard look on Sam's face just softened. "May I?" he asked, a little hesitant, as he reached out his hand. The question surprised her, but Catherine nodded and guided his large, weathered hand to the right spot on her belly. For a second, nothing happened, and then the baby kicked again, even harder this time. Sam's whole face changed, lit up with wonder. "That's a strong little one," he murmured. "Yes, he or she certainly is." Catherine felt a connection she never expected with this kind stranger as they shared the moment. She gently pulled her hand back, and Sam quickly pulled his away too, clearing his throat. "I'll go get those supplies for you," he said, his voice sounding a bit gruff. "You make yourself at home now." Left all alone, Catherine sank into one of the wooden chairs, suddenly feeling the full weight of the day's events. That very morning, she had been a desperate woman with nowhere left to go. Now she had shelter, a job, and maybe, just maybe, a friend. Tears of relief just spilled down her cheeks, and she didn't bother to stop them. When Sam returned a short time later, she had gathered herself. He was carrying a bundle of linens, a basket of food, and a small wooden box. Bedding, some groceries, and this. He set down the box. Some things that might be useful for the baby. They were Emma's, never used. A shadow of pain crossed his face, but he kept on. It just seemed a terrible shame to let them go to waste. Catherine opened the box to find the tiny little gowns, blankets, and knitted booties, all made with so much love. "Oh, Sam, I couldn't possibly." "Please," he cut in gently. "Emma would have wanted them to be used." Catherine nodded, her heart warmed by his kindness. "Thank you. I will surely treasure these." Sam then helped her make up the bed and showed her the trick to keeping the old stove's heat just right. "All right, I'll let you get some rest now. My place is just up the rise. If you need a single thing, don't you hesitate to come fetch me, day or night." "You have been more than kind," Catherine said, walking with him to the door. "I just do not know how I will ever thank you." "No thanks needed, ma'am," Sam said, setting his hat firmly on his head. "I will be back in the morning to give you a ride into town for your first day at the hotel." After he was gone, Catherine unpacked the few things she owned in the world, carefully arranging the baby items in a small chest of drawers. The food Sam brought was simple: bread, cheese, dried apples, and salted beef. But to her, it felt like a king's feast. Later, as the evening shadows stretched long across the valley, she sat on the little porch, wrapped in a quilt against the night's chill. The mountains stood like dark giants against the sky packed full of stars, and the soft sound of horses carried on the gentle breeze. In the distance, a lone coyote howled, its cry echoing clean through the quiet valley. Catherine rested a hand on her round belly, feeling her little one move inside her. "We have found a safe place, little one," she whispered, "at least for a little while." That night, for the first time in months, she slept a deep, dreamless sleep, free from worry about what the morning would bring. The next morning, true to his word, Sam rolled up in his wagon just as the sun was coming up to take Catherine into town. He had brought a thermos of hot coffee and some warm biscuits fresh from the oven. "Did you sleep all right?" he asked, giving her a hand up into the wagon. "Better than I have in many months," she admitted, taking the cup of coffee with a grateful smile. The morning air had a bite to it, and a fine layer of frost covered all the ground. "Is it always this chilly here in May?" "That is just mountain weather for you," Sam explained. "Warm days, cold nights. It will be real summer soon enough." The ride to town was a pleasant one, with Sam pointing out landmarks and telling her stories about the area. Catherine found herself laughing at his quiet jokes and his tales of how Salada got its start. "This town has only been here about 12 years, he told her. "It started out as a camp for the railroad. Now it is getting a bit more respectable, with the mines doing so well and the ranches spreading out across the valley." As they got closer to town, Catherine felt that old knot of worry tighten in her stomach. "Do you think people will gossip about me staying out at your place?" Sam's friendly face turned serious. "Well now, folks are going to talk. That is what folks do. But Mrs. Peterson's good name carries some weight in this town, and she is the one who hired you. That will quiet a good bit of the chatter." Catherine nodded and straightened her shoulders. "I am no stranger to whispers. I can handle it." "I reckon you can." Sam's steady confidence gave her a little bit of his own strength. Mrs. Peterson was waiting for them when they pulled up to the hotel. Her silver-streaked hair was pulled back tight, and her black dress was pressed as sharp as a tack. "Right on time," she said with a nod, giving Catherine a long look from head to toe. "The uniform is in your room. 3rd floor, down at the end of the hall. It is a small room, but it is private." She then turned her gaze to Sam. "I will see she is taken care of, Sullivan. You can stop fussing over her like a mother hen." Sam just tipped his hat to both of the ladies. "I will swing by around 7 o'clock to take you back to the cabin," he said to Catherine. "That will not be necessary," Mrs. Peterson cut in. "Miss Kelly will be staying right here at the hotel. The room comes with the job." Catherine glanced over at Sam, feeling a little sad to leave that peaceful cabin behind. But my things, I will bring them over later today, he promised. Mrs. Peterson is right. It just makes more sense for you to be here in town. I will expect you both for supper tonight, Mrs. Peterson said in a tone that meant business. 6 o'clock on the dot. Now, Miss Kelly, let's get you settled in so you can get to work. The day flew by in a blur of new faces and chores. Catherine learned the layout of the 15-room hotel and the proper way to turn down beds, all according to Mrs. Peterson's particular standards. She also learned how to politely but firmly handle any guests who got out of line. By the afternoon, her back was aching and her feet were throbbing, but she worked hard all day, determined to show she was worth her salt. Mrs. Peterson watched her like a hawk, but never said a word of criticism. Catherine took that as a very good sign. The other folks at the hotel, a cook named Martha, a young maid named Betsy, and a gruff handyman named Joe, were friendly enough, but clearly waited to see what their boss thought first. At 6 o'clock, Catherine changed out of her work uniform, which was a plain gray dress with a white apron, and she made her way downstairs for supper. Sam was already there, all cleaned up with a fresh shave and a clean shirt, talking comfortably with Mrs. Peterson. "Ah, there you are," Mrs. Peterson said as Catherine walked into the small, private dining room right behind the kitchen. "Sit yourself down before you fall down, girl. First days are always the hardest." The meal was simple but mighty delicious, with roast chicken, potatoes, and fresh spring vegetables from Mrs. Peterson's own garden. Catherine ate like she was starved, suddenly feeling how hard she had worked all day. "How did she do?" Sam asked Mrs. Peterson, though he kept his eyes right on Catherine. "Adequately," the older woman replied, which Catherine figured was high praise coming from her. "She is a quick learner, and she does not whine." "I brought your things from the cabin," Sam told Catherine, "and some extra firewood for your room. The nights can still get pretty cold." "Thank you." Catherine felt a wave of gratitude for this man who just kept looking out for her without ever being asked. "And thank you for the job, Mrs. Peterson. I promise you will not regret hiring me." Mrs. Peterson's stern face softened just a little. "I rarely regret my decisions, Miss Kelly. That is why I am still in business when so many others have failed." She set her fork down. "Now there is something we need to talk about." Catherine felt a knot in her stomach, wondering if she had already messed something up. "You need proper medical care with your condition," Mrs. Peterson continued. "Dr. Harris comes through town every second Tuesday. I have already made an appointment for him to see you when he gets here next week." "I cannot afford a doctor," Catherine protested. "Consider it an advance on your wages," Mrs. Peterson replied firmly. "I will not have you risking your health or the child's. It is bad for business if my employees start collapsing." Her rough words could not hide that she really cared, and Catherine felt tears welling up in her eyes. "Thank you." After supper, Sam walked Catherine up to her room on the third floor. It really was small, with just enough room for a narrow bed, a washstand, and a small chest of drawers. But it was clean and private, with a window that looked out over the mountains. "Will you be comfortable here?" he asked, setting down her suitcase. "Yes, very much so." Catherine walked over to the window, just admiring the view. The view of the sunset, which was painting the mountains in shades of gold and pink. "That's mighty beautiful." Sam came and stood beside her. He was close enough for her to feel his warmth, but still kept a respectful distance. "You know, Salida means exit in Spanish," he said. "It's where the Arkansas River comes right out of the mountains. I always reckoned that was fitting, a good place for a fresh start." Catherine turned to look him square in the eye. "Sam, tell me the real reason you're being so kind to me." He was quiet for a good long while, his blue eyes looking serious. "After my Emma passed, I made myself a promise that if I ever got the chance to help someone in her shoes, I would take it." He looked away for a second. "But it is more than just that now. You remind me there's still good left in this world, Miss Kelly. You have got courage and grit. That is a rare thing to find." "Catherine," she said real soft. "Please, just call me Catherine." A small smile appeared on his face. "Catherine." He took a step back then, giving her some space. "I will stop by tomorrow evening, if that is all right with you, just to see how you are getting settled. I would like that very much." After he was gone, Catherine got ready for bed, her head just buzzing with everything that happened, and as she drifted off to sleep, she realized something. For the first time in months, she was thinking about the future and feeling hopeful instead of scared. The next few days fell into a comfortable rhythm. Catherine put in long, hard hours at the hotel, and she started to earn Mrs. Peterson's slow approval and the respect of the other folks working there. Every evening, Sam would stop by. Sometimes it was just for a minute. Other times he would stay for supper whenever Mrs. Peterson asked him to. On her days off, Catherine would walk around town, slowly getting to know all the streets and the people who lived there. A few folks would stare and whisper as she went by, but most just gave a polite nod, knowing she was the new help over at Mrs. Peterson's place. Dr. Harris showed up right on time that next Tuesday, just like he said he would. He was a kind, older fellow with gentle hands and a straightforward way about him that made Catherine feel right at ease. "Well, everything looks to be just fine," he told her after the checkup. "The baby is in the right position and seems to be a good, healthy size. I reckon you will deliver sometime in early July." "Thank you, doctor." Catherine paused for a moment before she asked, "Is there anything different I ought to be doing to get ready?" Dr. Harris just smiled. "Just rest when you can, eat good food, and make sure you have got someone with you when your time comes. First babies have a habit of taking their sweet time to arrive." He gave her hand a gentle pat. "I will be passing through Salida again in late June and then in the middle of July. Lord willing, I will be here for the birth, but babies come when they are ready." Mrs. Peterson, who made sure she was there for the whole visit, spoke right up. "She will have plenty of help when her time comes. I have helped deliver my fair share of babies." Dr. Harris nodded, pleased to hear it. "Good. Between the two of us, Miss Kelly will be in good hands." He started packing his instruments back in his bag. "I will see you in June, young lady." As May rolled into June, Catherine's belly got bigger, and it got harder for her to move around. Mrs. Peterson, without a word, gave her easier jobs to do, like managing the guest book, sewing up the linens, and keeping track of the accounts. "There is no sense in you huffing up and down those stairs all day," she said in her rough way when Catherine tried to argue. "Besides, your handwriting is a whole lot prettier than mine." Sam kept up with his daily visits, and he'd bring her little things like wild strawberries he'd found up in a mountain meadow or a book of poems from the Mercantile. He even brought a rocking chair he'd fixed up for her room. "You'll be needing this when the little one arrives," he explained, his cheeks getting a bit red. He set it right by her window for nursing and all that. Catherine was mighty touched by his kindness and started to realize just how much she was looking forward to his visits. There was a quiet strength about Sam that she found deeply comforting. He never pressed her for details about her past, but he was a good listener when she chose to share. One evening, around the middle of June, they were sitting on the hotel's back porch watching the sun go down, and Catherine found herself telling him about the baby's father. "His name was William," she said, her hands resting on her round belly. "He worked as a clerk in my daddy's store. He was charming and educated. Said he loved me." She paused for a moment, that old hurt coming back. "When I told him about the baby, he just laughed, said I could not prove it was his. Then he just up and left town the very next day." Sam's jaw got tight, but he stayed quiet, letting her speak. "My own father believed him over me, said I had brought shame on the family name." Catherine's voice turned bitter, as if carrying the child was the shame, and not a man abandoning his own. Sam finally spoke. "Well now, some fellas just are not worthy of the blessings they are given." Catherine looked over at him, surprised by the steel in his voice. "A child is a pure blessing," he went on, his eyes on the darkening mountains. "And a man who walks away from his own blood is not a man at all." "Did you ever want children of your own?" Catherine asked. A shadow passed over Sam's face. "Once, a long time ago." "What happened?" He was quiet for such a long spell that Catherine figured he was not going to answer. Finally, he let out a sigh. "I was engaged before the war. Her name was Martha. We sure had plans." His fingers absently traced a pattern on the porch railing. "I came home from Gettysburg with a bad shoulder and nightmares that woke the whole house up." He just shrugged. "Some wounds just do not ever heal up right." "Oh, Sam, I am so sorry," Catherine said, her voice real soft. "It was for the best," Sam replied, but his voice told a different story. "She married a banker from Denver. Has 3 children now, from what I hear." They sat there in a comfortable silence as the first stars started popping out in the darkening sky. Catherine felt the baby give a little kick inside her and put her hand on the spot. "Feeling mighty active tonight," she commented. Sam smiled a real gentle smile. "May I?" Catherine just nodded, and she guided his hand to where the baby was kicking up a storm. That simple touch felt so right, like they had known each other for years instead of just a few weeks. "Have you been thinking about any names?" Sam asked, his hand resting on her belly. "James, if it is a boy, after my granddaddy. Sarah, if it is a girl." Catherine paused for a second. "Though sometimes I think Samuel would be a mighty fine name too." Sam's eyes met hers right then. She saw surprise and something much deeper in those blue eyes of his. "I would be honored," he said softly. A warm feeling passed between them, something they did not need to say out loud. Catherine felt her own heart start to beat a little faster, realizing her feelings for this good, steady man had grown into more than just being thankful. Their moment was broken by Mrs. Peterson, calling from inside. "There's a storm brewing up from the south. You all better come on in before you both get soaked to the bone." Right on time, a low rumble of thunder rolled in from over the valley. Sam got to his feet, holding out his hand to Catherine. "We had best get you inside." Just as they got to the hotel's back door, the first big drops of rain started to hit the ground. Sam paused for a moment. "I ought to head on home before this gets any worse." "You be careful now," Catherine said, suddenly not wanting to see him leave. He just nodded, pulling his hat down tight against the rain. "I will see you tomorrow." From her window, Catherine watched him ride off, his shape getting harder to see in the growing storm. That night, with rain beating on the glass and lightning lighting up the mountains, she just lay there wide awake. Her mind was full of Sam Sullivan and the strange new path her life was on in Salada. The next day, Sam did not show up at the hotel like he usually did. Catherine tried to tell herself not to worry, that the storm was a real gully washer and the trails were likely pure mud. Still, by evening time, a worried feeling had settled right over her. "Sullivan's likely just tied up with his horses," Mrs. Peterson said when Catherine brought up his absence. "A storm like that would have them all spooked." But when a whole other day went by without a single word from Sam, Catherine's worry grew a whole lot deeper. "Something is not right," she told Mrs. Peterson. "He would not just stay away without sending some kind of word." The older woman's face got serious. "Well, Joe can ride out there tomorrow and check on him if you are that concerned." "Oh, thank you," Catherine answered, feeling a wave of relief. "I surely would appreciate that." But when Joe came back the next morning, he had some troubling news. "Looks like Sullivan's laid up pretty good," he told Mrs. Peterson, while Catherine listened with her heart in her throat. "Took a nasty fall when his horse got spooked in that storm. Messed up his bad shoulder, something awful, and cracked a couple of ribs. I found him out there trying to feed his horse with one hand, stubborn as a mule." "Is he going to be all right?" Catherine asked, her voice all tight with worry. Joe just shrugged his shoulders. "He is getting by, but just barely. Says he will be fine in a few days." "That man would say he was fine if his leg was clean off," Mrs. Peterson mumbled. "Catherine, you go on and take the rest of the day. Go and see about that foolish cowboy before he hurts himself worse trying to prove he does not need any help." "But all my work. Betsy and I can handle things for one day," Mrs. Peterson cut in. "Joe will take you out there in the wagon." About an hour later, Catherine was standing right there at Sam's ranch. You could see the storm damage everywhere. A big old tree branch had come down on one of the corrals, and there was stuff thrown all over the yard. Joe helped her down from the wagon. "I will be back for you before the sun goes down," he promised her. "Sooner, if the weather starts to turn." Catherine nodded to say thanks and started making her way to the main house. She had never been inside and waited just a second before knocking on the door. "It is open," Sam's voice called out, and it sounded strained. Catherine walked in and found a living room that was simple but comfortable. A big stone fireplace took up one whole wall, and the furniture was sturdy stuff, built to be used, not just looked at. It was all arranged around the fireplace. Sam was sitting in a big armchair, his left arm held against his body in a rough-looking sling. His face was pale, and you could see the pain in it. "Catherine," he said, and you could tell he was surprised to see her. "You should not have come all this way out here." Joe told us what happened. She walked over to his side, looking him over with worried eyes. Why in the world did you not send for some help? Sam winced, trying to get comfortable in his chair. I've been through worse. Just need a day or two to get back on my feet. Catherine shot him a stern look. You're a terrible liar, Sam Sullivan. She gently placed her hand on his forehead. And you are burning up with a fever. It is nothing, he protested, though he did not pull away from her cool hand. Have you eaten anything today? When he stayed quiet, Catherine let out a soft sigh. That is what I figured. Now where is your kitchen? Despite all of Sam's protests, Catherine got right to work. She found the kitchen was well stocked, but a bit of a mess, clearly the home of a man who lived alone. Before long, she had a pot of broth simmering on the stove and some bread warming in the oven. You do not have to be fussing over me, Sam said when she brought him a glass of water. I do not want to be a burden. Catherine sat down on the footstool right beside his chair. After everything you have done for me, the very least I can do is make sure you do not waste away from plain old stubbornness. Her voice got a little softer. Please, Sam, let me help you. Something in the way she said it must have gotten through to him, because that look of resistance just melted right off his face. All right. While the broth was simmering, Catherine tidied up the living room, built the fire back up, and helped Sam take a little something for the pain. By the time she brought him a bowl of that hot broth and warm bread, he already had some color back in his cheeks. This is mighty good, he admitted after the first spoonful. Thank you. Catherine just smiled. You are welcome. While Sam ate, Catherine took a look around the house, finding it tidy but simple. There were not many personal things, just a small stack of books by his bed and an old photograph there on the mantelpiece showing a young woman with Sam's same eyes. That must be his sister Emma, Catherine figured. When she went back to the living room, Sam had finished his bowl and was looking a lot more alert. I have been a mighty poor host, he said, letting you wait on me hand and foot. That is just nonsense, Catherine repeated, taking his empty bowl. Friends are supposed to help each other. You are the one who taught me that. A comfortable silence settled between them as Catherine tended to the fire for the afternoon. Outside, the sun had finally come out, sending warm light streaming through the windows. How about we sit on the porch for a bit, she suggested. The fresh air might do you a world of good. With Catherine's help, Sam slowly made his way out to the porch, where a bench looked out over the mountains and the corral. They sat there side by side, just watching the horses graze peacefully in the afternoon sun. Your home is just lovely, Catherine said softly. You have built something real beautiful out here. Sam's eyes swept over his land with a look of pride. It has taken a good many years. When I first got here, there was nothing but an old trapper's shack on a wild piece of land. He glanced over at her. Do you ever miss St. Louis? Catherine thought about that question for a moment. I miss the life I thought I was going to have there. The teaching job I worked so hard for. My parents' approval. She rested her hands on her belly. But I do not miss the city itself or the person I was turning into, always so worried about appearances and what was proper. And now she smiled, feeling the baby kick right under her hands. Now I am learning what really matters in life. Real kindness. Good, hard work. Building something that is meant to last. Her eyes met his. I am so grateful my path led me out here despite everything. Sam reached over and took her hand, his calloused fingers surprisingly gentle. So am I. That quiet moment was broken by Buck, who came bounding around the house, barking happily the second he laid eyes on Catherine, slid to a stop right in front of them, his tail wagging something fierce. Well, hello there, Buck, Catherine laughed, giving him a good scratch behind the ears. You been keeping a good eye on Sam for me? He up and left me for those barn cats. The minute I couldn't toss his stick for him no more, Sam grumbled. But you could hear the smile in his voice. Catherine spent the rest of that afternoon helping out as much as Sam would let her, feeding the horses and gathering up the eggs from the little chicken coop, and even fixed them a simple supper. Just like he promised, Joe came back at sundown to drive her back to town. I'll be back tomorrow, she told Sam as she got ready to go. Now you don't have to do that, he started to say. But I want to, Catherine cut in gently, and that makes all the difference. You could see something change in Sam's face. A little bit of the hardness around his eyes just melted away. Well then, I'll be looking forward to it. Over the next week, Catherine split her days between her work at the hotel and looking after Sam. Mrs. Peterson, being more understanding than you'd expect, rearranged Catherine's schedule so she could have her afternoons free for the ranch. Sam was getting better, slow but sure. Those cracked ribs of his were a real bother, kept him from moving around much, and that old shoulder, hurt back in the war, got banged up again in the fall. Even so, his spirits were lifting higher every day, especially when Catherine was there. They settled into a nice, easy little routine. Catherine would show up after lunch and lend a hand with whatever chores Sam was too stove up to do. Then they'd sit a spell on the porch or by the fire, sometimes talking, and sometimes just enjoying the comfortable quiet between the two of them. She'd often read to him from one of his books while he just listened, his blue eyes fixed on her face instead of the mountains out yonder. One afternoon late in June, as they sat there shelling peas on the porch, all of a sudden Sam asked, "What are you planning to do after the baby gets here?" Catherine's hands just stopped in their tracks. "Mrs. Peterson says I can keep on working at the hotel. She even offered to help with the baby during my shifts. And after that, when the little one is older," Catherine started shelling again, thinking on his question. "I'd sure like to teach eventually. Mrs. Peterson mentioned the town might be needing another teacher come next year." She glanced over at him. "Why do you ask?" Sam looked out over his land with a thoughtful look on his face. "Just thinking ahead. This is a good place to raise up a child. Got room to run, good clean air, good folks for the most part." "Yes, it sure is," Catherine agreed softly. Sam looked like he was about to say something else when a sharp pain made Catherine gasp, and her hands flew right to her belly. "What is it?" Sam asked, sounding mighty alarmed. "Is it the baby?" Catherine took a deep breath as the feeling passed. "Just a strong kick, I reckon." But no sooner were the words out of her mouth, another pain grabbed hold of her, sharper than the last one. Or maybe not. The color drained right out of Sam's face. "Is it time? The baby's not due for another 2 weeks." "Well, babies follow their own schedules," Catherine said, repeating Dr. Harris's words, trying to stay calm though her heart was pounding. "But yes, I do believe it might be starting." Sam tried to get up too quick, wincing as his ribs hollered in protest. "We've got to get you back to town, to Dr. Harris." "Doctor!" "Harris won't be back through until next week," Catherine reminded him, as another pain made her grip the edge of the bench. "But Mrs. Peterson has experience. She told me she would help." Help when the time came. Sam looked like he was caught between being scared and being determined. "I'll get the wagon hitched. We can be in town inside of an hour if we hustle." Catherine nodded, all of a sudden mighty grateful he was there, steady as a rock. As Sam moved as fast as his hurt body would let him to get the wagon ready, Catherine focused on taking deep breaths, trying to call up every last thing her mama had ever told her about having a baby. The ride back to town was rough. Every bump and jostle of that wagon made the pain sharper, and they were coming closer and closer together now. Sam drove as gentle as he could, his face all scrunched up with focus, shooting worried glances her way every now and then. "You're doing real good," he told her, though it was plain he was saying it as much for himself as for her. "We are nearly there." By the time they finally pulled up to the hotel, Catherine's pains were hitting her every 10 minutes. Sam helped her get inside and hollered for Mrs. Peterson, who showed up right away, sizing up the whole situation with just one look. "Get her upstairs," she told Sam. "Joe, you go fetch Martha from the kitchen and send Betsy for hot water." Then she turned to Catherine. "How far apart are they coming?" "About 10 minutes, Catherine managed to say, leaning hard on Sam as another one started to take hold. Mrs. Peterson nodded. "Still early, but moving right along for a first one." She led the way up the stairs to Catherine's room. "Sam, once she is settled in, you best wait downstairs. This is women's business now." Catherine felt a shot of pure panic at the idea of Sam leaving. "No," she breathed out, clutching his arm tighter. "I want him to stay." Mrs. Peterson cocked an eyebrow, but she did not put up a fight. "All right then, but you stay out of our way, Sullivan, and don't you go getting faint on us." The next few hours went by in a haze of pain and being just bone-tired for Catherine. Martha and Mrs. Peterson moved around that room like they had done it 100 times, getting everything ready for the birth, while Betsy kept a steady stream of hot water and clean linens coming. Sam stayed right there by Catherine's side, not even thinking about his own hurt arm as he held her hand through every single contraction, whispering words to keep her going. As the evening turned into night, the pains got a whole lot stronger. Catherine found herself hanging on to Sam's strength for dear life, pulling courage from him just being there, solid as an old oak tree. When she cried out that she just could not take any more, it was his voice that brought her right back. "You can do this, Catherine," he said, his voice firm and sure, his blue eyes looking right into hers. "You are the strongest woman I have ever known." Just a little past midnight, with one last mighty push, Catherine brought her child into the world. The room filled up with the tiny, mad-at-the-world cry of a new baby. "It is a boy," Mrs. Peterson announced. Her hard face just melted as she cleaned and swaddled the little fella. "A fine, healthy baby boy." She placed the tiny bundle right into Catherine's arms. Catherine just stared down at her son, completely overcome by a wave of love so strong it nearly took her breath away. His face was all red and wrinkled, with a little bit of dark hair on his perfect little head. "He is beautiful," she whispered, with tears just streaming down her face. Sam leaned in close, a look of pure wonder on his face. "He is just like his mama." Those simple words, said with so much heart, made Catherine's own heart feel like it would burst. She looked up at Sam and saw in his eyes everything she was feeling, but could not find the words for just yet. "Would you like to hold him?" she asked, her voice soft. Sam held back a moment, a worried look on his face. "I'm just afraid I might hurt him." "You won't," Catherine told him with a calm voice as she carefully placed the newborn right into his arms. Sam cradled that little boy with all the gentleness in the world, his big, work-worn hands holding up the baby's head like he'd been doing it 100 times before. "Well, hello there, little fella," he whispered low. "Welcome to the world." The baby let out a big yawn, his tiny fist working its way out of the blanket to wave around in the air. Sam caught it with just one finger, his whole face changing with pure wonder as the baby's little hand closed right around his finger. "Got a strong grip," he said, his voice all thick with emotion. "He's going to be a fine man someday." Mrs. Peterson, who'd been quietly getting the room straightened up, walked over to the bed. "What are you going to name him?" Catherine looked from her son to Tiernan, who was still holding that baby like he was the most precious thing on earth. "Samuel," she said. "Samuel James Kelly." Sam's head shot up, his eyes locking with hers in surprise and something even deeper. "Catherine, are you sure about that?" She just nodded, her heart too full to even speak. Mrs. Peterson looked from one to the other, a knowing little smile spreading across her face. "I reckon I'll leave you three alone for a little while," she said, waving for Martha and Betsy to follow her on out. "But not for too long, Sullivan. This mother and her child need their rest." Once they were alone, Sam carefully gave the baby back to Catherine. "He's just perfect," he said, his voice all choked up. "And so are you." Catherine gave him a tired smile. "I couldn't have done any of this without you." Sam just shook his head. "You would have. That's just the kind of woman you are, Catherine Kelly. You face whatever comes your way with pure courage." He stopped for a second, his face getting serious. "But I'm mighty glad I was here. There is nowhere else on this earth I would have rather been." The simple, honest truth in his words touched her deep down in her soul. "Sam," she started to say, but he shook his head. "Not right now. You need to get your rest." He gently touched the baby's cheek with his finger. "We can talk about everything tomorrow." Catherine nodded, all at once feeling that bone-deep weariness wash right over her. "Tomorrow," she agreed. Sam leaned down and with a tenderness that could melt a heart of stone, he kissed her on the forehead. "You sleep well, Catherine. I'll be right close by if you need anything at all." After he was gone, Catherine just gazed down at her son's peaceful little face, marveling at the pure miracle of him. Against all the odds, after being cast out and shamed, she had found safety, respect, and maybe, just maybe, even love here in this mountain town. "Welcome to Salada, Samuel James," she whispered, kissing his soft little head. "I have a feeling we're going to be mighty happy here." The sun was just starting to peek over the mountains when Catherine woke up to her son's hungry cries. Mrs. Peterson showed up almost right away, helping her get the baby situated for his very first meal. You did real good, the older woman said, watching as the little one took to it right away. A strong, healthy boy. Thank you for everything, Catherine answered. I don't know what on earth I would have done without your help. Mrs. Peterson fluffed up the pillow behind Catherine's back. You'd have found a way. Women always do. She paused for a moment. Sullivan, he slept in that chair downstairs all night long. Wouldn't even think of leaving, not even when his ribs were hurting him something fierce. Catherine just smiled, like she already knew. He's a good man. Yes, he is. Mrs. Peterson studied her face. And he loves you more than... He sure does, I'd say. And I care for him too, Catherine admitted, gently stroking her son's cheek while he nursed. Very much so. Mrs. Peterson nodded, like she was confirming something she had known all along. Good. Y'all both deserve some happiness. She got to her feet. I'll send up some breakfast as soon as you are done feeding that little fella. And then you ought to get some rest while you can. New babies do not give you much time for sleep. The day went by in a warm blur of visitors, feedings, and a few precious moments of rest. Betsy just cooed and cooed over the baby. Martha brought over some special broth to help Catherine get her strength back, and even old Joe stopped by to offer his rough-around-the-edges congratulations. Sam came by regularly, bringing wildflowers he had picked for her bedside, and he would spend long stretches just quietly watching. She was sore, tired, but happier than she had ever been. Catherine smiled down at her son. He is a good baby. He hardly cries. He explained after Catherine showed her surprise at the beautifully crafted cradle. The carpenter had it all ready for another family, but they up and left for Denver last week. He said we could have it. That little word, we, did not go unnoticed by Catherine, but neither of them said a word about it. By evening, Catherine was feeling a bit stronger, although she was still mighty tender and worn out. After the baby's evening feeding, Mrs. Peterson shooed everybody out of there. This mother and her child need some real rest, she insisted. Y'all can fuss over them again tomorrow. But long after the hotel had settled down for the night, there came a soft knock on Catherine's door. She was not the least bit surprised to find Sam standing there, with an uncertain look on his face. I know you probably ought to be resting, he said, but I just wanted to check on you both before I head home. Please come in, Catherine invited, sitting up a little straighter in bed, with little Samuel sleeping peacefully in her arms. I am so glad you came. Sam stepped inside, closing the door quietly behind him. He pulled a chair up closer to her bedside. How are you feeling, really? I am sore and I am tired, but I am happier than I have ever been. Catherine smiled down at her son. He is a good baby, hardly ever fusses. Unless he is hungry, of course. Sam's eyes stayed on the tiny infant. He looks a lot like you. He has your nose, I think. Catherine let out a soft laugh. Mrs. Peterson says all babies just look like wrinkled old men at first. Not this one, though, Sam insisted. He is a handsome little fella, just like his namesake. But his attempt at a joke could not hide the real emotion in his voice. Sam, Catherine started, gathering up all her courage. There is something I need to tell you. He just nodded and waited. When I first came to Salada, I was just broken and so ashamed. I truly thought my life was over before it ever had a chance to begin. She glanced down at her sleeping son, then looked right back at Sam's face. But you saw something in me that I could not see in myself. You saw worth and strength and a chance for something more. Sam started to say something, but Catherine held up a hand. Please, let me finish. This is hard enough as it is. She took a deep breath. These past few weeks, you have shown me what a truly good man is. Not by doing big, fancy things, but through simple daily kindness and your steady, unwavering support. I love you, Sam Sullivan. The words just came tumbling out, simple and honest and true. I never expected this. I sure was not looking for it. After William, I did not think I could ever trust another man again. But I trust you, Sam, and I love you. Sam was quiet for a long moment, his eyes locked on hers, his face giving nothing away. Then ever so carefully, he moved from the chair to sit down beside her on the bed. He raised his hand to her cheek, his touch as gentle as could be. From the very moment I saw you standing all alone on that train platform, I felt something I figured was gone for good, he said softly. You were so brave, taking on those awful words with your head held high. I looked up to you before I even knew your name. His thumb gently wiped away a tear that had slipped down her cheek. These past few weeks with you have been the happiest of my whole life, Catherine. You brought the sun back into a world that had gone dark for me. He looked down at the little one. Both of you did. Are you trying to say? Catherine's voice hitched. I'm saying I love you, Sam finished for her, and I love this little bond like he was my very own. A wave of pure joy washed over Catherine, so strong it almost hurt. Now, Catherine, I know this is all mighty sudden, he went on. You just had this baby. You're still getting your feet on the ground here in Salada. I don't expect. Catherine leaned in and pressed her lips to his, stopping his words with a kiss that said everything she couldn't. After a second of surprise, Sam kissed her back, his hands gently moving to the back of her neck as the kiss grew deeper, with a tenderness that brought new tears to her eyes. When they finally parted, both of them out of breath, little Samuel stirred in his mama's arms, but he didn't wake up. I want to do this the right way, Sam said, his voice low and thick. When you're feeling stronger and when you're ready, I want to court you proper, the way you deserve. Catherine smiled right through her tears. I reckon we're a little past formal courting, Sam Sullivan. He grinned, and the pure joy on his face seemed to take years off his age. All the same, some things ought to be done right. Then his face grew more serious. I want to build a life with you, Catherine, with both of you, a real family. I want that too, she whispered back, more than anything in this world. Sam leaned in to kiss her again, his lips soft against hers. Then it's settled. We'll take it one day at a time, but we'll take it together. And just as if he knew something important had just happened, little Samuel picked that exact moment to wake up, his little face wrinkling up like he was about to cry. Catherine shifted him in her arms, and he settled right back down. He knows your voice, she told Sam. Even before he came into this world, he would kick whenever you were close. Sam looked completely amazed by that. Could I hold him again? Catherine carefully passed the baby into Sam's arms. Even with his hurt shoulder, he held that baby with perfect confidence, cradling him close to his chest. Well, hello there, Samuel James, he whispered. Now, I'm not your daddy by blood, but if your mama will have me, I promise I'll be the best daddy a boy could ever ask for. I'll teach you to ride and fish and how to be a good man. He looked over at Catherine. And I'll love your mother every single day for the rest of my life. Catherine felt like her heart was about to burst with pure happiness. This man, who showed up in her darkest hour, just like a guardian angel, was promising her everything she thought she had lost for good: love, a family, and a place to belong. We would be honored to have you be our family, Sam Sullivan, she said, her voice holding steady even with the tears that were welling up again. Sam smiled, the kind of smile that lit up his whole face. Then that's what we'll be. A family. Family. As the morning sun started peeking through the window, painting the room all soft and gold, Catherine looked at the man and the baby boy right there with her. Her whole future, something she never expected but more beautiful than anything she could have ever dreamed of when she first stepped off that train a few weeks back. Salada, bless its heart, was truly a place for a fresh start. Dr. Harris came back to town around the middle of July and declared that both mama and baby were doing just fine. By August, Catherine was back to helping out at the hotel, often with little Samuel snoozing peacefully in a basket right behind the front desk. And Mrs. Peterson, who'd been so tough at first, well, she was just completely taken with that baby boy. She was always scooping him right up whenever Catherine needed both hands for her work. And true to his word, Sam courted Catherine the right way all through that summer and into the early fall. He'd bring her flowers and little presents and take her on picnics up in the mountain meadows whenever she was feeling up to it. And he'd spend hours on end just sitting there with her and little Samuel, talking about the future and the life they were fixing to build. The folks in town, seeing that Mrs. Peterson approved and how devoted Sam was, they started to welcome Catherine like she belonged. All that gossip just faded away, and folks started asking after her and her son, genuinely caring. By the time fall came and turned the aspen trees to gold, hardly anyone remembered or gave a hoot about how she'd first arrived. Sam asked for her hand proper on a cool October evening while they were sitting on the porch of his ranch house. Little Samuel was sleeping soundly in his cradle right next to them. He showed her a simple gold ring with a small but perfect diamond. "It was my mama's," he told her softly. "I've held on to it all this time, just waiting for the right woman to wear it." Catherine's eyes welled up with happy tears as he slid it onto her finger. "It's beautiful, Sam." "Not nearly as beautiful as you," he said, and then he kissed her, his lips so warm. "Will you marry me, Catherine Kelly? Help me make this house a real home and this ranch a place for a family?" "Yes," she whispered right back to him, 1,000 times. "Yes." They got married in Salada's little church on the first Sunday of November. Mrs. Peterson insisted on throwing the party at the hotel, and she oversaw every last detail herself. Catherine wore a simple ivory silk dress that Betsy and Martha had helped her stitch together, and she held Samuel James, a sweet 4 months old now, right in her arms during the whole ceremony. "I take you, Catherine, to be my lawfully wedded wife," Sam said, his voice steady and strong. "To love, honor, and cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, for as long as we both shall live. I take you, Samuel, to be my lawfully wedded husband," Catherine answered, her heart just about bursting with joy. "To love, honor, and cherish, in sickness and in health, for richer or for poorer, for as long as we both shall live." The preacher smiled kindly. "By the power given to me, I now pronounce you man and wife. You may kiss your bride." Sam's kiss was gentle and sweet, a promise of all the good years ahead. And little Samuel, snuggled right there between them, let out a happy little coo that made everyone in the church chuckle. "Folks, I present to you Mr. and Mrs. Sullivan and young Samuel," the preacher announced with a big grin. The party after was full of laughter, good home cooking, and the warm blessings of the town that had become their big, extended family. Catherine danced in Sam's arms, her heart feeling lighter than she ever thought it could after those dark days of the year before. "Are you happy, Mrs. Sullivan?" Sam asked as they swayed to the music. "Happier than I ever dreamed I could be," she answered him honestly. "And you?" "Well, I have everything I never even knew I wanted," he said, his blue eyes shining with pure joy. "A beautiful wife, a son to raise, and a whole lifetime ahead to love you both." That night, after the party wound down and they had returned to the ranch that was now truly their home, Sam carried Catherine right over the threshold, the old-fashioned way, even with his ribs still on the mend. "Welcome home, Mrs. Sullivan," he said, setting her down gently in the living room, which had been transformed by Catherine's womanly touches over the past few weeks. "It feels like I've been home since the day you took my hand at the station," Catherine replied, reaching up to gently touch his cheek. Sam turned and kissed her palm. "That was the day my life truly started again." He glanced over to the cradle where Samuel slept without a care. "Both our lives." Later, as they lay together in the quiet darkness of their bedroom, Catherine rested her head on Sam's chest, listening to the steady, strong beat of his heart. "I never thought I could be this happy," she whispered. After everything that happened, it just seemed impossible. Sam's arms tightened around her. "Sometimes the hardest trails lead to the most beautiful views." He kissed the top of her head. "And you, Catherine Sullivan, are the most beautiful view I have ever seen." Spring came early to Salada the following year. As the snow melted away from the meadows and the first wildflowers started peeking out on the mountainsides, Catherine found herself watching her son trying to crawl across the porch of their house, the determined look on his face bringing a laugh to her lips. "He's got your stubborn streak," Sam commented as he joined her, coming fresh from the corral where he was working with a new colt. "And your determination," Catherine countered, leaning right into his embrace. At 10 months old, Samuel James Sullivan, because Sam had formally adopted him not long after the wedding, was a sturdy, happy child with his mother's dark hair and a smile that could charm even the sourest old-timer. He had said his first word, horse, just last week, much to Sam's great delight. "Mrs. Peterson stopped by for a visit while you were in the barn," Catherine said. "She wanted to remind us about the town celebration next weekend." Sam chuckled, as if she would let us forget. She has been planning it for months. The celebration was to mark the grand opening of Salada's new schoolhouse, a project Sam had been a big part in supporting. The town council had already asked Catherine about taking the position of teacher once Samuel was a little bigger. She also said Dr. Harris will be coming through the day before, Catherine added, trying to sound casual. I thought I might go see him while he is here. Sam glanced at her, his brow furrowing with worry. Are you feeling poorly? Catherine smiled, taking his hand and placing it on her belly. Not poorly, just expecting. Sam's eyes grew wide. Catherine, are you telling me that Samuel is going to have a little brother or sister by Christmas? Yes, that is exactly what I am saying. The joy that lit up Sam's face was everything Catherine had ever hoped for. He scooped her up in his arms, being so careful, and spun her around in a happy circle. A baby, he whispered right into her hair. Our baby. Our baby, she said back, her heart feeling like it could just burst with joy. Another Sullivan for our family. Sam set her down gently, and then he knelt to gather little Samuel into his arms. The boy giggled as his daddy lifted him up high. Did you hear that, Samuel? You're going to be a big brother. Catherine just watched them, the two great loves of her life, standing in the golden light of the setting sun. From being at rock bottom to the very height of happiness, her journey had been a winding and difficult road. But she would not change a single step that had led her to this exact spot, to this moment, with this family, and with this love. That December, as a blanket of snow covered the valley, and the whole ranch house was filled with the smell of pine and cinnamon for Christmas, Catherine gave birth to a daughter. They named her Emma Rose Sullivan, after Sam's sister and Catherine's own grandmother. She's just perfect, Sam whispered, cradling his newborn little girl, while Samuel, who was now 15 months old, peered over at his sister from his mama's arms. Just like her mother. And she has your eyes, Catherine said, noticing the clear blue that you could already see in the baby's tiny face. We are so blessed, Sam, so very blessed. We sure are, he agreed, sitting down carefully on the edge of the bed next to his family. And it all started because a brave woman stepped off a train in Salada. Catherine leaned her head against his shoulder, surrounded by the family she once believed she could never have. No, she corrected him gently. It all began because a kind man took my hand when everyone else looked the other way, and he told me I was beautiful to him. Sam kissed her so softly. You were beautiful then, he murmured against her lips, and you just get more beautiful to me with every day that passes. Outside, the snow kept falling, turning the world outside into a clean white wonderland. But inside the Sullivan home, the warmth from their family and the glow of true love made a safe haven against the winter cold, a true testament to the power of kindness, the strength of a person's spirit, and the enduring miracle of love that is found in the most unexpected places.